consumers pay more. Every time a Liberal member rises in this House and suggests the industrial carbon tax does not touch ordinary Canadians, they contradict the lived experience of every small business owner and every family who has watched their grocery bill rise and price at the pumps go up. To reiterate, this 4-point plan will be before the House.
Unfortunately, I must interrupt the member at this moment so that we can proceed to other business. The member will have about a minute left after question period if he so desires to avail himself of that time. Statements by members. Déclaration de député. The honourable member for Vancouver East.
Canadians are being squeezed at the checkout counter like never before. Families are cutting back on essentials, skipping meals, and struggling to afford groceries, while a handful of grocery giants continue to post massive profits. This is not a free market working for people. It's a system tilted in favor of corporate power where Canadians pay more and get less. The cost of groceries is not just a household issue, it is a national affordability crisis, and it demands bold action. Under the leadership of Avi Lewis, New Democrats are ready to take on grocery price gouging head-on. That means tackling surveillance pricing, building real public options in food distribution, strengthening local and regional supply chains, and supporting Canadian producers. We've done this before, from protecting farmland in BC to building public systems that put people first. The NDP know that when we act in the public interest, we can lower costs and improve lives. It's time to take back control from grocery giants and put...
The honourable member for Eglinton Lawrence.
Mr. Speaker, as a recovering banker, you'll forgive me if I relapse for a moment. I want to recognize the Canadian ETF Association and the profound impact exchange-traded funds have had on investors globally. Canada gave the world one of its most important financial innovations, the exchange-traded fund. Born on the Toronto Stock Exchange, ETFs have fundamentally transformed how investors access capital markets by making investing more transparent, efficient, and affordable. Today, ETFs employ 15,500 Canadians and manage more than $802 billion in assets. ETFs direct capital into Canadian businesses and infrastructure. They strengthen our capital markets and ensure that Canadians can build wealth with confidence. If we want to remain a global leader in financial innovation, we must continue to stay ahead of the Americans and others. I want to thank Prerna Matthews, Alex Perrell, and Ellie Ufes and the Canadian ETF Association for their great work. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Richmond Centre, Marlborough.
Mr. Speaker, a year ago, a tragedy in Vancouver turned a joyful Lapu Lapu festival into sorrow. As we approach this anniversary, the grief and trauma remain. For many families, the path to healing continues. Even in the midst of that pain, we saw the strength of a community coming together. A community with compassion, resilience, and strength. Neighbors lift up one another. Strangers became family. And Canadians across the country stood in solidarity. Last Sunday, I attended a community fundraiser supporting those still on the road to recovery. It was a reminder, as time passes, our support must not. As we honor those we lost, we stand with those still healing together. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Hear, hear.
The honourable member for Toronto St. Paul's.
Mr. Speaker, this Wednesday, April 15th, Canadians across the country will come together for National Canadian Film Day, a celebration of who we are and the stories we tell about ourselves. From classrooms to community centres, from libraries to living rooms, people will gather to watch Canadian films sitting side by side. More than 2,000 free screenings will take place across the country with over 200 films and millions more tuning in from home. Stories that reflect our communities, stories that challenge us, stories that remind us who we are and what we share. Mr. Speaker, I'm especially proud of Sharon Corder and Jack Bloom from Toronto St. Paul's, who co-founded Real Canada, the organization behind National Canadian Film Day. Their vision has grown into something truly special, a celebration of Canada right across the country and the globe. So tomorrow and in the days to come, I hope Canadians take 90 minutes, give or take, to find a film, gather with others, and celebrate the stories, the artists, the directors, and visionaries who bring us together.
The honourable member for York Centre.
Olivia Chow and Toronto City Council are building an injection site between a daycare and a middle school in our beautiful neighborhood of Downsview. It will be another Toronto homeless shelter that hands out pipes and needles. It will have a safe room where non-residents can get in, get a needle, inject themselves, leave and roam the neighborhood. Toronto's homeless shelters have morphed into drug injection sites. Now Olivia Chow wants $700 million from this Liberal government to pay for construction of 20 more of these shelters all around Toronto. Join me for a visit at Jane and Wilson near the Toronto Plaza shelter. It's an epicenter for drugs, crime, and chaos. Needles everywhere, drug trade, solicitation. The intersection is dead. Olivia wants to turn Jane and Wilson into Kill and Wilson using federal money. But we don't want Olivia's shelter harming our children. And we don't want this Liberal government to fund the construction of these drug dens that bring crime and chaos to Toronto streets. Downsview residents do not consult to the shelter, and we will fight it tooth and nail.
Here, here, here.
The Honourable Member for Beauport-Limoilou. Mr. Speaker, today I would like to pay tribute to a resident of my riding, Beauport-Limoilou, Mr. Marc Bergeron, a psychoeducator and coordinator of the 123 Go Limoilou initiative. For 20 years now, Mr. Bergeron has been driving through the parks and streets of Limoilou in a small bus filled with games and activities for children and families, making people happy above all. Thanks to his dedication, people have a gathering place. They can spend happy times together, children and adults. His bus has become a true point of contact for thousands of families seeking support. His dedication reminds us that it is these daily acts that make our neighborhoods more humane and vibrant. As he prepares to take a well-deserved retirement, I would like to highlight the immense contribution he has made to our community. Thank you, Mr. Bergeron.
The honourable member for Middlesex London.
Speaker, I am deeply troubled by the profound tragedy which occurred Sunday at Sarnia's Lambton College campus. My heart goes out to his family and all who knew 20-year-old Dane Nesbitt, a promising young former junior hockey player taken far too soon, and also to the two others that were injured. This senseless and unnecessary act of violence has shaken the community. We all know it could have been prevented. The primary suspect was already under a court order prohibiting him from possessing firearms, and he has a rap sheet a mile long. He was arrested in March for assault with a weapon and failure to comply. Last May, he was arrested on 2 counts of assault with a weapon, breach of order, and he's previously been charged with assaulting an elderly man. This guy should never have been on the streets. It's absolutely insane how he was not in jail. And who bears responsibility for this? The Liberal catch and release bail policies that continue to place dangerous offenders back on our streets instead of keeping them behind bars. We must fix these failed policies now to protect innocent lives. Canadians deserve safer.
The honourable member for Humber River Black Creek.
Speaker, I rise in response to deeply troubling reports of executions and repression in Iran, including the execution of 6 political dissidents by the regime in recent weeks. In addition to this political repression is the escalation of the obsessive, systemic, and ongoing persecution and scapegoating of the Iranian Baha'i religious community. As an example, Borna and Peyvon Naimi, 2 Baha'i cousins, targeted for their religious faith, remain detained, reportedly tortured, and like others, coerced into false confessions. Targeting people for their religious beliefs is a grave violation of worldwide human rights. Canada must continue to condemn these abuses, work with allies, and press for accountability. Iranians deserve dignity, justice, and freedom from fear. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Pitt Meadows Maple Ridge.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are under immense economic strain, and now this Liberal government has jeopardized the very foundation of home ownership. The Cowichan decision and secret Musqueam agreement have cast a dark shadow over private property rights. By failing to defend fee simple ownership in court and dropping key legal arguments, this government has sparked fear and financial chaos. Appraisers are warning that effective property values could plunge 40%. Financing is drying up and projects are already being cancelled. This is a massive failure of leadership. Conservatives are calling on the Prime Minister to reinstate strong legal defense of private property, ensure all agreements unmistakably protect ownership, deliver a clear plan within 30 days, immediately convene a Parliament committee. Canadians deserve certainty and security, not empty words. The government must protect Canadian homes and restore confidence now.
Good job.
The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Mr. Speaker, on April 4th, the community of Saint Paulin bid farewell to one of its most distinguished citizens, Mr. Claude Frappier. First elected as a city councillor in 2004, his commitment to the common good led him take the role of interim mayor in November 2020. Re-elected mayor in 2021, he held the office with unprecedented determination and dedication, ensuring that he rigorously fulfilled each of his commitments. Illness ultimately forced him to decline re-election. Mr. Frappier was appreciated by everyone, always attentive to the needs of others, open-minded and generous. He left an indelible mark on the entire community of Masquinongé, which will remain etched in our memories. The impressive turnout of people who came to pay their respects on April 4th is a testament to this. Mr. Frappier, you are a model of commitment and dedication to the good of the community. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Compton-Stanstead. Mr. Speaker, agriculture and agri-food are at the heart of the identity of my region, and from farm to table, farmers are truly allowing us to thrive. And this is the case at JF Bolduc Farm in Compton. For 25 years, they have been innovating and contributing to a sustainable agriculture. They were recently recognized at the Sustainable Farm Gala for the Eastern Townships. When we see how much they allow us to thrive, they have received many prizes for their gastronomy. And the Bolduc family was one of the finalists in the artisan categories of the year. Alexandre Vasson was also a finalist, as was the sommelier. So from farm to table, that's what we need to continue to support and enhance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Carleton Trail Eagle Creek.
While the Prime Minister continues to make big promises, Canadians continue to struggle. The truth of the matter is he's an illusionist. Canadians are paying 35% more due to rising global oil prices, and Liberal taxes are making it even worse, forcing them to pay almost 20% more than Americans. Not only is the Prime Minister late to the game in announcing relief at the pumps, it's an illusion that he will actually deliver on affordability when he's only pausing the fuel excise tax from April 20th until Labor Day. Conservatives have brought forward a plan to eliminate the fuel excise tax, the GST on gas and diesel, the industrial carbon tax, and the clean fuel standard for the rest of the year. A plan that would cut costs at the pump by 25 cents per litre, saving a family of four $1,200 this year. Canadians deserve affordable fuel and food. Conservatives will continue to fight the cost of living crisis, restore economic growth, and make life affordable again.
The Honourable Member for Markham-Stouffville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Society of Gynecologic Oncology of Canada says we are in a national silent health crisis. Cervical cancer has become the fastest rising form of cancer in Canada. Last year, an estimated 1,650 Canadian women were diagnosed with cervical cancer, and 430 will die from the disease. Cervical cancer has been in decline for decades, but in recent years, rates have been on the rise. This is a disease that is almost entirely preventable through human papillomavirus vaccination, easily diagnosed through cervical screening, and highly curable when treated early. Last July, our government released an action plan to eliminate cervical cancer by 2040. During this April Cancer Prevention Month, Canadian women need to know that HPV vaccination and cervical screening can save lives.
Excellent. The Honourable Member for Brandon Souris.
Mr. Speaker, Canadian gas prices have soared and the time for action is now. Unsurprisingly, the Liberals have only just stumbled out of the gate. Conservatives have presented a plan with real solutions for Canadians amidst an affordability crisis that Liberals created. Here's the solution. Cut 4 costly Liberal gas taxes. Our plan would halt the fuel excise tax and the fuel standards tax until the end of 2026 and permanently remove the GST and the industrial carbon tax. These taxes cost Canadians an extra 25 cents a litre in gas and 21 cents a litre in diesel. Cutting taxes keeps that money in Canadians' pockets. This morning, the Liberals attempted to poach this plan, but true to form, they didn't even copy and paste correctly. By pausing only the fuel excise tax and only until September, the Liberals have acknowledged that cutting taxes is the answer, but their half-measure plan saves far less than our Conservative plan. So will the Liberals admit their mistake this afternoon and implement our full plan today to promote real relief for Canadian families?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Member for Sydney Glace Bay.
Mr. Speaker, good news. Canada has reached the NATO 2% defence spending target. Half a decade ahead of schedule and the largest year-over-year increase for our defence budget in generations. This is a proud moment, and I want to congratulate the Prime Minister and the Minister of National Defence for their leadership in making it happen. Now, Mr. Speaker, this is more than a number. It's a signal to the world that Canada is serious about defending what we've built and protecting what we value. And Cape Breton knows this very well, Mr. Speaker, because Sydney has been selected as the preferred home for Canada's next generation of polar ice vessels, bringing jobs, strengthening our sovereignty, and putting our community at the center of the defence renewal. Mr. Speaker, we are rebuilding and we are rearming. And in a world that is watching, Mr. Speaker, Canada once again will lead the way.
The Honourable Member for Calgary East.
No one is surprised this Liberal Prime Minister stole another Conservative idea. But like a typical Liberal, he only took a part of it. The Prime Minister said he was looking for solutions. We put one right in front of him. Conservatives are calling for all federal fuel taxes to be removed for the rest of this year, including the excise tax, the GST, the Liberal fuel standard, and the industrial carbon tax. Canadians would save 25 cents per litre at the pump, and families would save $1,200 just this year. But instead, the Liberals announced a half measure and kept all the Liberal fuel taxes in place that are driving up the cost of gas, groceries, and transportation. Canadians are paying 20 cents more per litre than the Americans, and the difference is federal Liberal fuel taxes. Today, Conservatives brought a motion forward to remove all federal taxes for the rest of the year for Canadians. If the Prime Minister is going to steal our ideas, he should at least be willing to steal them whole.
The Honourable Member for Etobicoke Lakeshore.
Mr. Speaker, last night Canadians made a big decision in University Rosedale, Scarborough Southwest, and Terrebonne by putting their trust in this government, this new government plan, and our Prime Minister. To everyone who put their name on the ballot, I want to say thank you. Our democracy is better off for your participation. I would like to congratulate our new colleagues, Danielle Martin, Dolly Bagan, and of course, welcome back our colleague, Tatiana Agah. This government has a clear mandate to continue action on important issues that matter most to Canadians. And with these 3 newly elected colleagues and under the leadership of our Prime Minister, we will do just that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Here, here. Oral questions. Questions orales. The Honourable Member for Regina Capel.
After weeks of Conservative pressure, Liberals finally admitted that their...
The Honourable Member for Hamilton West was standing. I don't know if he has a question. From the top, the Honourable Member for Regina Capel.
After weeks of Conservative pressure, Liberals finally admitted that their high fuel taxes are hammering Canadians at the pumps. But in typical Liberal fashion, this Prime Minister has proven to be just another Liberal, keeping more windfall taxes for government than providing relief for Canadians. The Liberal announcement today is simply not good enough. It's only going to provide a third of the relief for a third of the year. The Conservative plan is to scrap 100% of federal fuel taxes for the entire rest of the year. So if they're going to admit that Conservatives were right all along, why not just go all the way and adopt our full plan?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I know it's Tuesday. There's so much good news, I don't know where to start, Mr. Speaker. Just look at their face. Mr. Speaker, they should be smiling. The International Monetary Fund just announced that Canada is forecasted to have the second fastest growth in the G7, Mr. Speaker. In the G7. In addition, Mr. Speaker, we are suspending the federal fuel excise tax, Mr. Speaker, on gasoline from the 20th of April until Labor Day. Mr. Speaker, every day is a good day to...
The honourable member for Regina Capel.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, good times are almost here, just a little over the horizon. But right now, there's no smile on motorists' face because they were expecting 100% relief at the pumps. Under this Liberal government plan, they will still continue to collect windfall taxes, and hard-working Canadians will have to pay more at the pump. The Liberal government is keeping the GST on fuel and the fuel standard taxes, which adds alone 7 cents a litre. They are only providing a third of the relief for a third of the year. You don't give a pharmacist a high five when he only gives you 1/3 of your prescription. So why not just go all the way, reduce, scrap, eliminate 100% of fuel taxes for...
The Honourable Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Speaker, unlike the opposition who don't have a plan, we have a plan. We have reduced the price on gasoline by 28 cents a litre since we became the government. We are reducing taxes for Canadians. We are reducing GST for Canadians. We're reducing development charges on homes. In my riding, saving $200,000 a home. That's how you deal with affordability, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, while Canadians are struggling to pay for groceries, the Liberal government is once again proposing half measures. The government's announcement only affects a fraction of fuel costs, taxes, and only for a few months. That's 10 cents a litre. Meanwhile, one moment, please, says the Speaker. There is too much noise from the right and my right-hand area. You may start from the top again. Mr. Speaker, Canadians are struggling to pay for groceries, and the Liberals are once again proposing half measures. The government's announcement affects only a fraction of fuel taxes, only for a few months. This measure would amount to barely 10 cents per litre of gas, while costs are skyrocketing at the pump, and Canadians are paying much more than their neighbours to the south. Why are the Liberals refusing to really help Canadian families? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, it is Tuesday. We have so much good news. I don't even know where to start. In fact, this morning alone, the International Monetary Fund indicated that Canada will have the second fastest growth in the G7. Second, Mr. Speaker, announcement of the suspension of the federal excise tax on fuel and diesel. Gasoline and diesel, that's $2.4 billion in the pockets of Canadians, Mr. Speaker. That's excellent news for drivers, excellent news for consumers, and excellent news for Canadians and affordability.
Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles.
The honourable member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, there will be good news when this government actually does things completely. For the last 3 years, we've been asking for the carbon tax to be struck. They've done that. Now we're asking for them to get rid of all of these taxes. Fuel excise tax, GST, fuel standards tax, industrial carbon tax. Will the government do something to actually help Canadians? Canadians are paying too much for everything. The Honourable Minister of Transformation. Mr. Speaker, I'm very proud of the announcement made this morning by the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance, $2.4 billion for Canadians to deal with the cost of living. But we didn't stop there. 22 million Canadians received a tax cut. We have the Canadian benefits, groceries and essential benefit, the dental plan, and so many other measures. I can barely name them all. We've got no lessons to learn from them across the way in how to deal with the cost of living.
For Foothill.
The Liberals' gas change amounts to what is really chump change. It's only for a third of the year, for a third of the tax. It's not relief when you barely save 10 cents a litre on gas and 4 cents a litre on diesel. It's not relief when you still have to pay the GST and the Liberal fuel tax. Canadians are going to get back pennies. Meanwhile, the Liberals are collecting billions of dollars in federal gas tax revenue. Why the half measure? Why not adopt the Conservative plan to remove all the Liberal taxes on fuel, on diesel and gas?
Right on.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Look, in addition to all this good news, Mr. Speaker, I want to highlight one additional measure the Prime Minister and my colleagues announced today, and that is that Canadians are going to find it less expensive to get out and travel around the country this summer because we are lowering the excise tax on jet fuel, Mr. Speaker. We are going to reduce domestic flights, the cost of domestic flights. We will even go visit the member in Foothills, Mr. Speaker.
Wow.
Get out and enjoy et vive le Canada, Monsieur le Président.
The Honourable Member for Foothills.
It's incredible how the Liberals could twist themselves in pretzels. When it wasn't that long ago, they were accusing all Conservatives of taking a summer vacation while the planet burned. And now they're saying we can travel around the world.
Yeah.
It's not a benefit. When the Liberals are pocketing billions of dollars in gas tax revenue right from the pockets of Canadians who are struggling just to buy the basics.
Yep. Right.
Why do the Liberals take these half measures? Why don't they really follow a Conservative policy and eliminate all of the Liberal taxes on fuel so Canadians can afford that summer vacation we'd all love to take?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think, Mr. Speaker, it's the reality is the global instability has created an atmosphere where we had to react, Mr. Speaker, and we're reacting. I credit the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance for coming forward with this. I hear it from the farmers on the front line, Mr. Speaker, every other day, concerned about the crop that they're going to put in. Second growing fastest economy, that's a contribution from our farmers, Mr. Speaker. 28 cents a litre since this new government has been put in place, and $2.4 billion back in the pockets of Canadians. It is a good day, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, regional news is in jeopardy. The situation's even worse for regional news in French. That's why the Fund for Independent Local News is so critical. But since Ottawa allowed 15 English language stations from the Chorus Group to access the fund, the share allocated to French language media has plummeted. The only two eligible French language groups have lost nearly half their funding, which has dropped from 26% to 14%. Of course, the solution is for the GAFAM to contribute to funding media. But first, as a priority, regional French language news needs to survive. Will the government enhance this fund? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, thanks to the fund, we know Francophone regional media sources are receiving funding from the federal government precisely to provide French language media. We are keeping all options open in an environment where these platforms and these broadcasters are under threat from these major platforms. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, funding regional news media in English, no problem, but not by taking money away from the French media's share. If the government adds participants to the Fund for Independent Local News, well, it must also add funding. Obviously, we wouldn't have this problem if the Prime Minister hadn't cut the digital services tax. We could have adequately funded all our media with GAFAM's fair share. Since the Prime Minister is depriving our media of that revenue, will he increase the fund? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as I said in my previous answer, we are looking at a number of options. The Honourable Member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, by adding 15 English language stations to the Independent Local News Fund without funding from the GAFAM, we're robbing Peter to pay Paul. The result, 86% of their money goes to English language media at the expense of the last remaining independent French language regional news outlets. Let's be realistic, Mr. Speaker. There is no long-term solution without contributions from GAFAM. But there need to be media outlets left to support. The government must temporarily bail out the fund, and it must extend its tax credit for journalistic labor to electronic media, as Quebec has done. When will that happen? The Honourable Minister.
Qu'on vient de voir, Monsieur le Président,
given the question that we've just heard, you can see the real face of the Bloc Québécois. They're always pitting the Anglophones against the Francophones. We can do both at the same time.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister's temporary half measures on fuel prices shows he's more focused on increasing government revenues than offering real relief to Canadians at the pump. The Liberals will rake up to $10 billion more in taxes, while Canadians will save just 10 cents a litre. Here we go again, Mr. Speaker. Billions for this Liberal government, but pennies for Canadians. Why should soccer moms, seniors, and young people pay the price at the pump for this Prime Minister's overspending?
The Honourable Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, let me help my friend on the other side of the aisle. We have cut taxes by 28 cents a litre since this new government came into office. We have cut income taxes. We have cut GST. We have cut the cost of a home in Markham Thornhill, my riding, by $200,000 a year in total. That's what affordability looks like.
The Honourable Member for New-Tecumseh-Gwillimbury.
Well, Mr. Speaker, this announcement will barely move the needle for Canadians drowning in credit card debt just to fill up. Instead of adopting the Conservative plan to eliminate all taxes on fuel and save Canadian families $1,218 until 2027, the Liberals' half-baked plan will only save families 10 cents a litre for a couple of months. No one has a monopoly on good idea, Mr. Speaker, so why is this Prime Minister refusing to listen to Conservatives and offer real relief to Canadians at the pump?
The
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Top of it. Excuse me, is the translation working now? Ça va? Vous entendez la traduction? Oui?
Now it's working.
Ça va? It's working, the translation? Okay, from the top, the Honourable Minister.
Well, third time's a charm, Mr. Speaker. Here's the thing. We can focus on two things at the same time. We can help families with urgent cost relief right now, which we're doing by eliminating the fuel excise tax. But what we can also do, and this is the part Conservatives don't get, is help with long-term sustainable affordability. That's where things like affordable childcare come in, or removing the HST from new homes, or making sure that there's school food programs, or ensuring that Canada Child Benefit is there for families. We want to be there for families now when the crisis is urgent, but also in the long term, and that's the kind of stuff they vote against every time.
The Honourable Member for Regina Luban.
Mr. Speaker, Conservatives have brought forward a plan to eliminate the gas tax, GST on gas and diesel, the industrial carbon tax, and the fuel standard tax for the rest of 2026. This would cut costs at the pump by 25 cents per litre and save a family of four up to $1,200 this year. Why is this Liberal Prime Minister shortchanging Canadian families and not cutting all taxes for the whole year?
The Honourable Secretary. The Honourable Secretary of State for Rural Development.
Mr. Speaker, as I've said from time to time, they've been here 10 years, the Conservatives across the way. I've been here 10 months, and guess what? I get to announce the tax break for the farming community in Saskatchewan, Mr. Speaker. All this done within a 10-month time frame.
Wow. The Honourable Member for Regina Luban.
Mr. Speaker, I've known that member for a very, very long time, and I made a career out of cleaning up his messes. Him and the NDP destroyed Saskatchewan for 16 years, and now he came to the Liberals and is destroying the economy of Canada. So once again, after he's finished ruining the economy for Canadians, once again, we'll clean up his mess for all Canadians so they can get ahead.
I'm not sure there was a question in that, but the Honourable Secretary of State.
The member is correct. I've watched his underperformance in the Provincial Assembly in Saskatchewan. Now I'm watching their collective underperformance, all 13 of the Saskatchewan Conservative MPs, Mr. Speaker. And let me remind folks today, we are announcing uranium development in northern Saskatchewan, Mr. Speaker. This week I was at Suma announcing wastewater and sewer projects and water projects for 3 cities, Mr. Speaker. This government's on a move, and as I mentioned before, Mr. Speaker, great news, we're just getting started.
The Honourable Member for Similkameen, South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Today, the Liberals announced they're adopting a third of our gas relief plan for just a third of the year. But residents in the Similkameen, South Okanagan, West Kootenay don't just drive for the summer. Our plan would take excise, GST, and fuel standard tax off of gas and diesel for the rest of 2026. That would cut costs at the pump by 25 cents per litre, $1,200 for a family of 4. Will the Liberals end the tax grab and save Canadians 25 cents a litre?
The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, British Columbians are happy to hear that we are investing in them and that we are addressing affordability for them. They are happy to hear that we are making a reduction in fuel costs from now until Labor Day, and British Columbians are going to use that to go and enjoy our country as they can this summer, and maybe they'll also combine that with the Canada Summer Pass as they go and explore this wonderful country.
The Honourable Member for Shefford. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Here we go again. Every year, seasonal workers are plunged into the black hole of employment insurance. Workers in the fisheries, forestry, tourism, and other sectors receive no income for weeks on end. The Liberals, for now over 10 years, have been promising comprehensive employment insurance reform, and they must keep their promise. But in the immediate term, seasonal workers need 15 additional weeks each year. When will the Liberals finally and permanently close the employment insurance black hole?
Minister of Jobs and Families.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, employment insurance is really important for all workers. That's why it's important to improve the program and to include those things that are required for individuals who are in very difficult circumstances.
measures to ensure that workers that are facing hard times get what they deserve as fast as they can and ensure that they have the weeks they need to stay financially viable.
The Honourable Member for Côte-Nord, Kawachi-Kamach, Nitassinan. Mr. Speaker, seasonal workers are not asking for the moon. The Interprovincial Employment Insurance Alliance has calculated that it would cost 1 cent per $100 of wages to close the black hole for good. 1 penny. The federal government will need to understand that it is the work that is seasonal in the regions. The workers, however, are permanent. They are the ones who keep the regional economy running, and they need 15 more weeks each year. Will the government finally and permanently close the employment insurance gap?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
C'est très important, les travailleurs.
It is really important for Canadian workers to have confidence in the employment insurance system in this country. That is why we've included measures to support workers. And I will be working with my colleague there to listen and find ways to help the workers. The Honourable Member for Mécantic-L'Érable-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, once again, this Liberal Prime Minister is confirming that Conservatives are the ones with the real solution, that this government has not changed, that it can solve nothing. The Liberals are providing crumbs. Their announcement only affect a third of taxes on fuel for just this short period. In the meantime, they will continue to pocket billions of dollars from taxpayers' pockets. The real solution is to strike all of these taxes on gas. It's been 10 years now. Why can't the Liberals even do things halfway? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to Nature. Mr. Speaker, what we are currently doing is working on Canadian taxpayers' buying power. We're not just doing one thing at a time. We can walk, chew gum, and do a whole bunch of other things as well. We are working on the economy, on jobs. The data from today indicates that their economic growth is recognized globally. We've reduced the gas tax, and we have a number of programs out there that will help Canadians deal with this incredible crisis. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable-Lotbinière. They recognize it. It is a crisis. But it's been 10 years that they've been in this position. Who put the Canadians in this position? Because it is the Liberal government. They've been doing the same thing for the last 10 years. They claim to be doing things, but they only do part of it. They take some of our ideas, but not all of them. At the end of the day, people are having a hard time paying for their groceries, for their gas, to fill up their cars, to go to the grocery store, to go to school, to go to work. A Liberal is a Liberal is a Liberal. Why is the situation the way that it is in this country? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We know Canadians are struggling now, and Conservatives are criticizing things, but they have been obstructing the work of Parliament here in the House. We are trying to move ahead. This morning, in fact, we put forward a targeted measure to support Canadians, to support consumers, to deal with this shock at the pump. This will help them directly, Mr. Speaker, with money in their pockets. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-Légitimement-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, it's just smoke and mirrors right now. The Prime Minister has nothing more than crumbs to propose. 10 cents a litre, where they're going to be bringing in $10 billion from Canadian taxpayers? Why is this government refusing to use the Conservative government's entire program that would eliminate the fuel excise tax, the GST on gas and diesel, fuel standards tax, and industrial carbon tax? That would mean a major change. The Honourable Minister for Government Transformation. it would be so simple, like the 26,000 people in her riding who have access to the dental care plan. It would be so simple for this member to support that program. It'd be so simple for this member to support the child benefit when you look at $67 million being sent to 10,000 families in her riding. And when she says crumbs, $2.4 billion back in the pockets of Canadians by eliminating the excise tax, the federal excise tax, that's not minor, that's major. The honourable member for Bellechasse-les-Échemins-Lévis. It's interesting. Canadians are paying 20% more than their neighbors to the south on gas. This thing will only affect a third of taxes for the part of the year. What we're suggesting is for them to use our platform 100%, and then we'll agree with them. The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased we've eliminated the carbon tax. That's 28 cents a litre less at the pump. But it's ironic to see the member across the way. She was in government in Quebec herself. She put a price on pollution with the cap and trade system. You know, it's just the height of irony.
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lobinière. Mr. Speaker, the measures announced this morning by the Liberal government are too little too late. The price of diesel today is $2.75 a litre, and the 4-cent decrease will not change anything for our truckers. This Liberal government is still bringing in 8 cents per litre in GST and 7 cents with the clean fuel standard. Canadians are paying 20% more than Americans for gas. So can the Liberal government start doing something for all Canadians? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Well, I think Canadians would give this member an A for histrionics and a C for arithmetic, because people in Lévis know that $2.4 billion are being left in truckers' pockets. I hope my colleague will take this clip and put it up on his platforms just so all truckers can be informed in the Quebec City region that we are there for them. By lowering the prices of diesel, we are also bringing down food prices, because we know that the cost of diesel has an effect on logistics, and we will continue to fight for Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Sackville-Bedford.
Mr. Speaker, over the past year, Canadians have navigated a rapidly changing and increasingly fragmented world, one that is more complex, more volatile, and more unpredictable. In this environment, Canadians have done what they have always done. We have rolled up our sleeves, looked out for one another, and adapted. This work belongs to all of us. This is Canada's moment to build together. Last night, Mr. Speaker, the good people of Scarborough Southwest, University Rosedale, and Terrebonne placed their faith in this plan. Mr. Speaker, could the Minister of Finance please update the House on the next steps in our plan to build a strong and resilient Canadian economy and give us some...
L'Honorable Ministre des Finances.
Mr. Speaker, Budget 2025 presented generational investments in housing and infrastructure, in productivity innovation, in our defense, Mr. Speaker. It's a plan to grow the strongest economy in the G7. Mr. Speaker, I will have the pleasure to present the spring economic update on the 28th of April to this House, Mr. Speaker. This is going to be a plan that is going to help families, it's going to help our industry, it's going to help our nation, Mr. Speaker, to prosper and to obviously bring good news to Canadians across the nation.
Thank you. The Honourable Member for Haliburton, Kawartha Lake.
Speaker, Canadians are facing rising costs, economic uncertainty, and housing challenges. Now, with the Cowichan ruling in British Columbia, it's adding a new layer of doubt about whether homes in the city of Richmond are truly secure. Home ownership is the foundation of financial stability for millions of Canadians, yet the Liberals have failed to clearly defend it in court. Will the Prime Minister instruct his lawyers to unequivocally argue that private property rights of Canadian homeowners must come first and finally provide the certainty Canadians demand?
Honourable Minister for Crown and Indigenous Relations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me be clear. Canadians can still buy, sell, inherit, and renovate their homes under provincial and municipal law. We disagreed with the Cowichan ruling and appealed it on September 8, 2025. We believe the Cowichan decision requires legal clarity. That's why the government will pursue all legal options through the appeal process. We will protect private property owners and uphold the Constitution without fear-mongering.
The honourable member for Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes.
Speaker, the government filed their appeal at the last second, but here is the thing. In 2018, the government instructed their lawyers not to make the argument that fee simple property is supreme while the case was in the lower courts. And unfortunately for the property owners involved, the government can't mount an appeal with an argument it did not make originally. So I ask the minister, please help Canadians, help us all understand how the government intends to win a court case with an argument they can't make.
The honourable minister.
Mr. Speaker, again, we are appealing the Cowichan ruling and we will be pursuing all legal options. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Hear, hear. Centre Marpole.
Mr. Speaker, this Liberal government avoids the question, hiding behind appeals and technical definitions, instead of stating a clear and substantive position.
That's right.
This is apparent. In court and backroom agreements, the Liberals refuse to say whether they will stand up for Canadian home owners. Canadians deserve certainty.
That's right.
Will the Prime Minister direct lawyers to argue that the private property rights of Canadian home owners must come first? Yes or no?
Yeah. Good job.
The Honourable Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations.
Monsieur le Président, permettez-moi d'être clair.
Let me be clear, Mr. Speaker. We will ensure that people can still use provincial and municipal rules when they are renovating and selling their houses. We do not agree with the ruling, and we appealed it on September 8th, 2025. We believe that the Cowichan ruling requires legal clarification. That is why the government will be pursuing all legal options through the appeals process. We will protect property and our Constitution. Thank you.
The honourable member for Richmond Centre Marpole.
Mr. Speaker, appealing the decision is not the question. The government still has not said whether it's arguing that Canadian homeowners' public property rights come first. I will keep asking this question until there's a clear answer.
That's right.
Will they make that position clear in court and in all future agreements? Yes or no?
Yeah. The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, my honourable colleague had asked us to state the position of the Government of Canada clearly. We disagree with the decision of the Superior Court in British Columbia. We have decided to appeal that decision in order to pursue a different outcome. At trial, we defended fee simple and believe that more clarity is needed, particularly on the issue of private property rights. Mr. Speaker, these debates are legal debates. The appropriate forum for them to take place is through the appeal process, not on the floor of the House of Commons.
The honourable member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley.
The Cowichan ruling has created uncertainty for homeowners and First Nations in BC, calling into question whether private property rights are secure. Canadians are already struggling with affordability. They should not have to wonder whether or not they own their own homes. Cowichan themselves said they did not seek to invalidate private property ownership. Will the Prime Minister direct his lawyers to clearly argue in court that private property rights of Canadian homeowners must be a priority as well?
The Honourable Minister for Crown Indigenous Relations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I've told the House, we are appealing the decision. But what I would like to point out is that courts is one way of settling the Aboriginal title, negotiations is another. And that's what we've done in that member's jurisdiction. We have been working with the government of British Columbia as well as the Haida Nation. It's been 2 years since the Haida title agreement has been in place in the province of British Columbia. The sky hasn't fallen, Mr. Speaker. Private property is protected under the Haida agreement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley.
This could have been avoided. This could have been avoided. This Liberal government's secretive approach to agreements like the Musqueam Rights Recognition Agreement without transparency or clear protections for private property has added to the anxiety that private property owners are already experiencing. The consequences are uncertainty, stalled sales, and the potential to derail previous reconciliation efforts. Will the Prime Minister commit today that no future agreements will be signed unless they explicitly protect and prioritize the private property rights?
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let's be clear. This band of Conservatives is who is sowing dissent and anxiety in Canada. The government has been crystal clear. We support. Some respect.
Okay. I didn't really hear all the words there, but it was an interruption. So the minister may start from the top.
Pretend like you're talking to.
And he may thank you, from the top again if the honourable member for Thompson-Nicola continues. So the honourable minister of. Okay. The honourable member for Lakeland, I think it is. Okay, the honourable member will be the honourable. Let's just all take a moment. Take a moment. Okay. All I know is that we don't have the required silence, and unfortunately, I can't hear all the banter. That's the unfortunate part. So I don't know who's to blame, who was first, and all of that. But let's have some quiet so that the Minister of Housing and Infrastructure can start from the top and answer this very important question on this very important issue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll reinforce the concerns that this side of the House has about the anxiety and the fear-mongering that the Conservatives are pushing on this issue. This is a very serious issue. This government supports the appeal. This government supports the rights of private property owners. This government supports reconciliation. We will pursue the course of action, appealing the Superior Court decision in BC. We will see justice and clarity on this. We don't need politics played by the Conservatives to make this worse for Canadians.
The honourable member for Mission Matsqui, Abbotsford.
Mr. Speaker, what I'm seeing today from the government is a government pursuing confusion, a policy of confusion, and a policy of confusion that has the whole province of British Columbia upset. So earlier today in question period, the Minister of Indigenous Relations said that the government will pursue all legal options. Can she just clarify for British Columbians whether that includes an argument to protect the private property rights of the British Columbians impacted by the Cowichan decision? Yes or no, a straight answer in good faith.
The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, Canada disagrees with the BC Supreme Court's ruling, and we appealed it on September 8th. We are committed to maintaining legal clarity and stability for private land ownership. Further legal clarity is required to address the decision, particularly as it relates to private property rights.
There you go. The Honourable Member for Abbotsford South Langley.
The Cowichan ruling has raised very real concerns about the security of property rights in Canada. At a time of high cost and economic uncertainty, Canadians should not be questioning the ownership of their homes. The Liberals negotiated the Musqueam Agreement in secret with no transparency, leaving homeowners unable to sell and builders unwilling to invest, all during a housing crisis. Will the Liberals commit to protecting Canadian rights by ensuring no future agreements are signed without clearly stating that private properties are coming first and are protected?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, our government has made it clear, first by appealing the decision and then by making clear statements that we not only stand for and will defend property rights. The concern here, Mr. Speaker, is that the opposition isn't interested in the answer. What they're interested in is fear-mongering, spreading misinformation, driving mistrust in the market, creating economic uncertainty. That's what they're about. We're about making sure we're protecting property rights, building a strong economy, and pursuing reconciliation.
The honourable member for Cloverdale Langley City.
I held a town hall with business leaders in my riding, and I expected to hear about tariffs and red tape. Instead, the number one concern by far was this: do we still even own our own homes? Decisions like the Cowichan ruling and the Liberal secret Musqueam agreement are shaking confidence in property rights. Investment is freezing, builders are backing off, and uncertainty is growing. And people are starting to wonder if we're drifting toward that "you'll own nothing and be happy" mantra. Is that where this Prime Minister is taking us, or will he instruct his lawyers to defend property rights of Canadian homeowners? Yes or no? Yes.
The Honourable Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Reconciliation and economic development go hand in hand. That's right. Through litigation, we are defending private property. And for those nations where we are in negotiations with the government of British Columbia and First Nations, it's the opportunity to sit down at the table and actually be clear that private property is excluded. So we will continue through litigation as well as negotiation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de
The honourable member for Brome-Missisquoi. Mr. Speaker, the new government of Canada recently announced a Force of Nature Canada strategy to protect nature. With an investment of $3.8 billion, this new strategy will enable us to protect and restore essential habitat, to ensure that our industrial strategies complement our conservation efforts, and mobilize new capital for nature. Can the Secretary of State Nature tell Canadians about our new plan to protect our natural environment for the generations to come? The Honourable Secretary of State Nature. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for Brome-Missisquoi for this question and for his hard work to protect nature. Nature is so important for Canadians, and that is why our government is maintaining its objective of protecting 30% of our lands and waters by 2030. Thanks to a Force of Nature Canada strategy to protect nature, we will protect nature more effectively and at a lower cost, especially by mobilizing private capital. We, like Canadians, care deeply about nature, and we will protect it.
The honourable member for St. Albert, Sturgeon River.
Mr. Speaker, for more than 8 hours, Liberal MPs have been filibustering to shield the Finance Minister from appearing before the Ethics Committee to answer questions about his role in directing billions of tax dollars to the Alto high-speed rail project, notwithstanding that his partner is none other than a VP at Alto. This raises serious questions about a potential conflict of interest. If the minister has nothing to hide, will he tell these filibustering Liberal MPs to stop and come to committee?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as that member knows, Canadian members of Parliament, designated public office holders, we follow among the most stringent ethics rules in the world. We will comply vigorously, as has my colleague, the Minister of Finance. And I would take this opportunity to remind the honourable member across that Alto is a Crown corporation, 100% owned by Canadians.
The honourable member for St. Albert, Sturgeon River.
Mr. Speaker, the minister has acknowledged a conflict in respect of Alto, hence setting up the so-called ethics screening. Yet he has repeatedly introduced, spoken on, and voted on legislation to advance the project. And instead of clearing the air, we now have this spectacle of Liberal MPs filibustering at committee to shield the minister from accountability. So it begs the question, is this what Canadians can expect a Liberal majority government to look like?
Good question. The Honourable Government House Leader.
While we're on the topic, Mr. Speaker, let's talk about the dream of high-speed rail for Canadians. 1,000 kilometers of linear project that will change the face of mobility city and work, play, or study in another. This will take greenhouse gases out of the atmosphere and will change life for millions of Canadians, Mr. Speaker. This is the kind of project Conservatives used to dream about. The Liberal government is going to build high-speed rail with or without.
The honourable member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington, Diane Minaga.
In February 2025, this Prime Minister announced a project that will see thousands of property owners across Ontario and Quebec face expropriation, communities divided, and Canadians forced to pay over $90 billion. From day one, this government has failed to answer even the most basic question about the cost, timing, impacts, routes, or construction. This isn't government vision, Mr. Speaker. It's reckless vanity. Will the minister finally listen to the thousands of concerned property owners in Eastern Ontario, cancel Alto high-speed rail, and invest in priorities and infrastructures that Canadians actually need?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, just 3 years ago, in 2023, a grand gathering of Conservatives gathered in convention and solemnly debated the great dream of high-speed rail in this country. And you know what conclusion they came to? Overwhelmingly, Conservative delegates just 3 years ago said, let's build high-speed rail in this country. Now, this leader cynically goes and says he would cancel it. That these Conservatives, Mr. Speaker, used to think big. Now it's up.
L'honorable député de Rivière-des-Mille-Îles.
The honourable member for Rivière-des-Mille-Îles. Mr. Speaker, over the last year, Canadians have had to adapt to a rapidly changing, fragmented world. The world is more complex, less stable, and for many, it is more costly and unpredictable. In this context, Canadians are doing what they've always done. They roll up their sleeves, they support each other, and they adapt. This is something that affects us all. This is the time for Canada to build together. Yesterday, the people of Scarborough Southwest, Terrebonne, and University Rosedale all renewed their trust in this plan. Can the Minister of Finance tell the House about the next steps? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for her important work. Indeed, Budget 2025 is a generational plan for investing in housing, infrastructure, innovation and productivity, and defense. We are going to build the strongest economy in the G7 together, and I will have the pleasure of presenting to this House on April 28th the Spring Economic Statement. We are going to continue building an inclusive and strong Canada.
The honourable member for Wellington, Halton Hills North.
Mr. Speaker, Iran is a serial violator of human rights, and because of that, the government formally designates Iran as a state supporter of terrorism under the State Immunity Act. However, last Wednesday, the Liberal government voted in favor of Iran's membership to the United Nations Committee for Program and Coordination, which plans, programs, and coordinates human rights at the United Nations. Why did the government vote in favor of Iran's membership on this committee?
L'honorable secrétaire parlementaire de la ministre des Affaires étrangères.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
The Prime Minister has been very clear. We are currently supporting and making sure that civilians and civilian infrastructure must be protected, international law must be respected, and we will stand for the safety and security of Canadians wherever they may be over the world. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to monitor the efforts that are being done in Iran. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Courtenay Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, 2 months ago, the Minister of Health stood in this House and called herself the guardian of the Canada Health Act. Yet after months of delay, she's failed to act while Danielle Smith expands American-style pay-for-access diagnostics and two-tier care. Canadians can't afford more stalling while our universal healthcare system is undermined. If she's truly the guardian, why is she taking so long to enforce the law and stop this erosion of our public healthcare system.
L'honorable ministre de la Santé.
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Acknowledge the concern that my colleagues from the opposite has. Yes, I'm the guardian of the Canada Health Act, and we are working closely with all provinces and territories. We know that Alberta is moving in a direction. My department is having conversation with Alberta right now, and I will have a conversation with my counterparts, and I will get back to you. Thank you.
The honourable member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question goes to the heart of the issue. Does this government respect science? We're seeing cuts announced across environment and climate change in terms of their research efforts, Agriculture Canada and their critical research. Hundreds of scientists around the world have expressed alarm at killing an entire segment of our scientific capacity for insect taxonomy. The question is, has the Prime Minister ever consulted his chief science advisor about these cuts before the pink slips go out?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Industry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the question. As the member knows, we've made record investments in science and research in the 2024 budget and now the 2025 budget on our Impact Plus Chairs program. Some of the work we do is through government science, and we get good advice on that from our hardworking Chief Science Officer. And more importantly, and in a greater form, we make significant investments through researchers outside of government. I had the recent opportunity to go to Vancouver Island and visit Ocean Networks Canada to accompany my colleague, the member for Victoria, and University of Victoria's Pacific Regional Institute for Marine Energy Discovery and the Centre for Aerospace Research in North Saanich. And I look forward to continuing to build on that work with the member and the member from Victoria.
And that concludes the question period. Okay, we will allow members to leave quietly. That's the end of question period. We're ready, I think, to continue. We'll go now to orders of the day.
Orders of the day, government orders, business of supply. Resuming consideration on an opposition motion regarding fuel taxes. Standing in the name of Mr. Halan.
The honourable member for Vaughan Woodbridge had about a minute left. Does he want to take that time? Yes? Okay. The honourable member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
So to reiterate, the 4-point plan before the House today is the following. 1, remove the fuel excise tax, adding 10 cents a litre for the remainder of 2026. 2, remove the GST on gas and diesel, removing 8 cents a litre for the remainder of 2026. Permanently remove the clean fuel standard, which is 7 cents a litre, and permanently remove the industrial carbon tax. Now, if we look around the world at many of our allies, Australia has cut fuel and diesel taxes in half for 3 months. Germany announced $1.9 billion in fuel price relief. Ireland cut its excise tax